Imagine playing the top 100 golf courses in the world and then some. Greg Ohlendorf has done that. He's our guest on Paradise in the Pines. Welcome to Paradise in the Pines, a podcast about the people, places, and stories that make this the home of American golf. Brought to you by the Pinehurst, Southern Pines, Aberdeen Area Convention and Visitors Bureau. Greg Ohlendorf, welcome to Paradise in the Pines. Appreciate you taking time out.
Thanks, Phil. This is going to be fun.
You played all these golf courses around the world. First of all, how do you have the time to even sit here and do this? Let me just read this. This is amazing. You're the second person to complete Golf Magazine's World Top 100 Courses, 2005 to 13, Golfweek's U.S. Top 100 Modern Courses and Classic Courses in 2010, Golfweek's Top 100 list from 2011, played in all 50 states, over 1,000 courses, 16 countries, currently working on the GB&I, Great Britain and Ireland Top 100 list, expects to be done by June or at 85 in June. If completed, you'd be the first person to ever do that. So where do you find the time?
It's efficiency. I still have a full-time job, and that's pretty important to me. But when there's days off, it's golf and it's 36 holes when we're traveling. So you've got to be a good planner and you got to be efficient.
And I assume you have to have a love of golf.
You have to have a love of golf.
Where did that begin?
So as a kid, my dad was a ball player and had some looks even in the major leagues. He was a pitcher and never made it, but he loved anything that had a ball. So whatever the season was, we had that ball out. And eventually golf became kind of part of it. And I started at 10 and just fell in love with the game just because it's so beguiling and perplexing and fun and challenging and all those things.
It can never be perfected.
It's never perfected.
So talk about how early you started playing the game of golf and what inspired you to go on this journey.
Yeah, so I don't know, when I was little, I had a little home course called Shady Lawn. It was a local muni, nothing special, but it was mine, right? But I always enjoyed playing somewhere new. And so when it was getting close to high school and I knew I was going to try to play competitively then, I wanted to play where all the other schools played. So we went and tried to do that. And mom and dad owned a funeral home and an ambulance company. So we didn't stray far from home. There was no real travel in my life, especially at those ages. But we could go 8 miles and play the next little local muni and so on. And I just loved notching off, well, I'd played there. Where else haven't we played?
And so when you started this journey, how did you begin? What even inspired you to say, hey, I want to play the top 100 golf courses in the world?
Phil, you don't start. Some people say they're going to do it, right? And you ask them, and how many they've played, and well, I've played 12, and it's all the resorts, and the other 88 are going to be pretty tough, right? But you really don't know that you're doing it until you're kind of doing it. And so, in 2000, we had planned a trip to go over to Scotland. My son was 10. We were going to take my mom, and when we started planning the trip, my dad was an Alzheimer's patient and had been for years. And so mom was the caregiver, and everybody knows what that's like. And so we decided we needed to get her away because, again, they never traveled. They never went anywhere because the 24-hour, 7-day-a-week, 365-day-a-year businesses, you just didn't leave. And so we said, no, Mom, we're going to take you to Scotland. And that would help us because, my 10-year-old would have somebody to room with and so on and so forth. And so we planned this crazy, amazing adventure to go to Scotland. And, of course, when you go the first time, you try to play all the rota courses, which my tour person at that time said you can't do. But we made it to 4 of the 5 major Scottish regions and played really a whole lot of stuff. And on the flight home, my wife, who I call the greatest golf wife in the world, no offense to anybody else's golf wife, but mine's really good. Melissa's top drawer. She was already getting out the list of where would you want to play if we went to Ireland next year. And then it was Scotland the year after, Ireland the next year, England the next year, Scotland the next year. So we did 6 trips in a row and started, kind of collecting a lot of those courses. In the meantime, I started doing some chasing in the United States. I joined the Golfweek panel in 2004 and started to play some, but still never thought it was possible to complete a list. But you still always were kind of keeping track.
Sure. You mentioned you got a full-time job. I'm sure, have endless funds, a corporate jet. You got to fly commercial. So what do you do for a living?
So I'm president and CEO of a small community bank south of Chicago, Illinois. It's really my only job. I've been there 39 years and it's been great. But no, I don't have a corporate jet and all that. I simply found a bunch of travel partners. I fly the same airline every time, the same hotel, the same rental car. And you accumulate at least some points
I
or
was going to
miles
say,
to help, right?
For sure.
But no, it was always just on our own. But the nice thing about Chicago is with Midway and O'Hare, we had direct flights to everywhere pretty much I needed to go. And I always had a map of what was next. And it helped. And being in the middle of the country helped.
How would you approach? I mean, I would imagine you played some of these courses, sounds like before you became a Golf Week Raider.
Yeah, for sure.
So, I mean, to play Pine Valley, you just go, hey, call Pine Valley. Hey,
No.
I want to come play.
No, it's golf's the greatest game that we've been given on earth because of the people, right?
Yeah.
I mean, everybody wants to share their golf course. I mean, it's just amazing as you meet folks, and somebody will say, "Hey, have you played X, place? This is where I play at." And I've told many people over the years, please don't say that because I'm going to call. I mean, you just sort of like, I'm going to follow through. But no, a lot of them are hard. And some of them I thought were completely impossible. Pine Valley being one of them. I just said, there's just no way I'm going to ever find a way on Pine Valley.
Right.
But then I found a buddy that was a member of the Olympic Club. And, before a round of golf at Bandon was over, he said, well, I've got a Pine Valley friend who will host you. And, I've got a guy at this place or I've got a guy at that place. And so he gave me Shinnecock. He gave me Pine Valley. I played Olympic with him. I played Monterey Peninsula, which was an amazing story. I played with a 90-year-old lady. I was 45 and my son was 18. So I said we were on the nines. And to think that an 80-year-old or 90-year-old lady was our host at Monterey Peninsula. And I had one of the most epic days of my life playing with Barbara.
How do you go about, like, say you're looking at 2025, you're going to have 85 knocked out of the GBNI top 100. How do you go about planning your year around work, flights, golf clubs? Have they ever lost your golf clubs? Because I've had that happen to me.
No, I've been lucky. They were delayed once in China when we were chasing a course there, but they showed up at 2:30 in the morning to our wonderful surprise. But no, we've been lucky. Clubs have always kind of made it with us. But you do have to plan ahead. I mean, for anybody that really wants to do this, and I don't care if it's planning an epic trip to Pinehurst to play the great courses that we've got here, or to go across the pond. I mean, it's 6, 8, 9, 10 months ahead. The trip to Japan, China, South Korea, Thailand, and Vietnam was literally a 9-month plan.
Wow.
And I had to get the courses exactly in the right order because we were on 13 flights to make all the thing work. And I couldn't backtrack.
Yeah.
So it is a tremendous planning exercise. Organization is a big deal.
Do you get any sponsorship, or how do you arrange hotel? I mean, you got to arrange golf. You got to arrange hotel too.
Yeah, this is Greg's nickel. I mean, you sort of do it.
Wow, that's spectacular. What is so? Talk about the. You mentioned the 4 courses you played on the road in Scotland when you were kind of getting started. What courses were those?
Yeah, so the first trip to Scotland, land in Glasgow, and of course, one of the easy things to do is go to Prestwick. And I thought, well, what would be more perfect than my first course in Scotland to be at Prestwick? I mean, the host of the early opens and so on. And it was Prestwick and then Troon and Turnberry. And then we ended up at Glen Eagles and St. Andrews and Carnoustie and Cruden Bay and Royal Dornoch. And they all said it was too much ground to cover. And I said, I may never get here again. There is no such thing as too much ground. Another couple hours in the car, who cares?
Yeah. You've played in all 50 states, 1,000 courses, 16 countries. What would be, say, maybe the biggest surprise you found in another country on a golf course?
The differences in the way golf is played. In Japan, it's all female caddies. And there is a very, very rigorous way that a round of golf works in Japan. John Sabino wrote a tremendous piece some years ago about the 14 or 15 steps that you'll go through when you play in Japan. And I thought it was funny. And I thought it was just John being cute. And I called him before I went to Japan. And I said, John, is this really how it goes? I mean, you show up in a coat, and it's required. And as soon as you get there, you take it off. But you have to have a coat on when you go. And you have to have a cup of coffee before you play. And I don't drink coffee. But I realized I drank my first cup of coffee before my round in Japan because my host was going to require it. And afterward, you end up in a infinity plunge bath with a towel on your head, with shoes on and buck naked with a bunch of other Japanese guys. And you're thinking that's the craziest thing in the world, except it's the coolest thing in the world to jump into a pool bath like that after a round of golf. But there was just this whole ritual of how you play golf in Japan. And I found it to be fascinating.
What's your handicap?
I'm a 4.
Wow. Okay. I would imagine you travel with a lot of golf balls. How many golf balls do you lose?
Not that many. Yeah, it's really amazing. I mean, most of the time you throw a couple dozen in when you're going to be on a trip of, say 20 or 23 courses or something, and you come home with a dozen left. So it's not that bad.
I see you were wearing the Mid-Pine. Of all the places you've been in the world, you're wearing your Mid-Pines pullover. So you had a chance to meet Kelly Miller, president of Pine Needles Mid Pines Southern Pines Golf Club, at a unique place. We talked about this before the podcast, but it was kind of cool how you met him the first time.
Yeah, so the first trip to Scotland in 2000, I mentioned we played the old course, but that's the tee time I didn't have. And so, of course, at that time, it was get up at the crack of dawn, wait by the starter's shed, and hope you'd get in. And as a single, you have a somewhat of a chance. I mean, the rules have changed now today. But my son and I, who was 10, brought his Game Boy, and we had stocking caps on and heavy coats because it was chilly at 4 a.m. And we're sitting on the ground with a bunch of other golf nuts waiting for our possible chance to play. And you hope you can get on. And so we were 5th in line, I believe. And when someone comes up with less than a foursome, they ask that group if they'll allow one of the walk-ons to come up. And so about 8:40 in the morning, a threesome steps onto the first tee at the old course, and they walked up. I was next, and to see if I could possibly play with them. And oddly enough, it was Kelly and his son and a friend of theirs who was a new club member from Scotland. And so I met Kelly on the first tee of the old course.
That's awesome. Talk about you're a member. You moved to Pinehurst. When was the first time you visited? First of all.
Well, so in the beginning, when we started chasing golf, we got out of college. I tried to play college golf, and I realized I couldn't pass my classes and play college golf at the same time. So I basically stopped playing. And when I got out, I played in the 9-hole men's league, which was a lot of fun. But we were probably married 3 years and hadn't gone on a vacation since our honeymoon. And my wife and I were just dead broke. I mean, we just didn't have any money. She was student teaching. It was making ends meet. It was tough. But she decided we needed to go on a vacation. And so the first thing she wanted to do, because she was a Wisconsin girl, was spend 3 days in Wisconsin. And the last was going to be at Kohler at the American Club, which I had never heard of. But she went to high school, and Kohler was in her conference, and she had seen the old immigrants lodging being turned into the 5 Diamond Resort that it is today. And she said, I'll even let you play Black Wolf Run. And I said, I don't know what that is. Well, Pete Dye was building the first course at Kohler, and I had no idea. So I got to play Black Wolf Run, and I walked off and said, this is amazing. I mean, this is what golf is. I had played munis, and now I'm playing this amazing golf course. So the second chapter in the book I ended up writing about this adventure is called It's All Melissa's Fault, and She Knows It, because then the next vacation was to go to Hilton Head Island, where the Candy Stripe Lighthouse was. And the third one in 1996 was to come play Pinehurst number 2.
What was your first impressions of number 2?
It was a very different golf course in those days.
Yeah.
It was wall-to-wall Bermuda grass, and you'd lose balls in the rough just because the ball sat so low. And Pinehurst number 2 at those days was very polarizing. I mean, you'd ask people, and half loved it and half just didn't get it. And I walked off and said, the greens are amazing, but gosh, this Bermuda grass is really, really challenging. And then I got to come back and play right after the Coore Crenshaw redo, and I actually got to meet Bill Coore in Pinehurst and talk to him about the redo and seeing the golf course and what it really was supposed to be.
Yeah.
Mind-blowing. I'm just mind-blowing.
You get a chance to go to the U.S. Open?
I did, of course.
Were there the final day to see Bryson's
I didn't see Bryson's shot. We decided that, it's really good to watch it on TV at the end of the day, but we went out every day, spent some time on the golf course, and, the course looked fantastic.
We talk about number 2, and that's the course everybody wants to play when they're here. People ask me, my favorite course is Mid Pines. I mean, I think it's just a classic Donald Ross golf course. The 3 that Kelly has are just absolutely, I mean, if you were to put 2, 4, and 8, I tell people 2, 4, and 8, Kelly's courses, and now Tullamore Mid-South has legacy. So you've got some trios there. But talk about the trios that Kelly has at Mid Pines, Southern Pines.
Yeah, the first time down to play those courses was 2006. My son was going to be a senior in high school, and he was the captain of his golf team. And so I said, we need to come down, and we need to get you. I want to see how you play golf weary. When you got to play a lot of time, a lot of tournaments in a row. So we came down to Pinehurst, and we played 14 rounds in 7 days. And we played obviously Mid Pines and Pine Needles at that time. Didn't know Southern Pines existed. And Mid Pines hadn't had the redo at that time. And again, it was wall to wall, kind of resorty. You could see what was there. But Pine Needles we fell in love with immediately. Just loved the quirky greens and everything about it. And then again, to come back and see, the redo that Kyle did, and then see this golf course and what it could be. I mean, I don't know how you can't love Mid Pines, and to throw it in with Pine Needles and then the redo at Southern Pines, taking the old Elks Club and giving it some of the love it deserved. Probably the best piece of property in town.
That's what Kelly said. But
I mean, it's just amazing.
And Donald Ross loved that course.
Yes.
Talk about when you were playing and started this journey, you became a Raider. Were you always intrigued with golf course architecture? Is that something that's always been a part of this experience that as a rater too, that not just the experience from writing about playing 1,000 courses in 16 countries, but also the unique architecture and all the different architects that create these golf courses around the world.
Yeah, I mean, the beauty of golf versus bowling, is bowling, you figure out how the lane is oiled at some point in time, and then, drop the ball in the third plank. And if you're really good at it and do it over and over and over, you're a great bowler. And I don't take that for granted. That's hard. But, you sit there in golf and you've never had the same lie twice in your entire life, the wind, the sun, the rain, whatever's going on. And then all these landforms, and it's just being able to see the game and trying to figure out the guy that built this or the gal that built this wanted me to think something, or they're trying to fool me, and they're trying to give me that look that I really shouldn't be paying attention to, and outsmarting that, or trying to at least try to conquer what's been given there has always been interesting to me. I'm an old dead guy architect. I really, really love, some of the early McDonald and Rayner, Mackenzie, Ross. I mean, those things are, those are just gems. And to be able to go see them, and some of those courses are getting such nice restoration work done today to bring them back to what they were. Seeing those kind of courses just really inspires me, and it always has.
We talk about coming to Pinehurst, Pebble Beach, the typical places that people want to go over to Scotland, play those courses. But what country would you recommend as like a hidden gem? You're like, you got to go to this country and play these golf courses because they're phenomenal, and that would just maybe shock some people.
Wow. We had a lot of good times in New Zealand. The golf scene in New Zealand today is just tremendous, with the start of the Terra Edie model, which Tom Doak built. And when we saw it, we said, this is world top 50, first ballot. And I think it came in at 35. So that was a lot of fun. You can't go wrong with Great Britain and Ireland, but the one that people miss is everyone wants to go to Scotland, and then everyone wants to go to Ireland, and no one chooses to go to England. And the amount of phenomenal golf in England is mind-blowing. Now, it's different. It's not all coastal. It's not all links, a lot of Heathland, Parkland courses and whatever. But I'll tell you what, a 36-hole day at Sunningdale, it just doesn't get better than that.
Actually, here's the gentleman that we did, Dan, we did golf tips with. Gosh, I can't remember his name.
Nick Bradley.
Nick Bradley. Yeah. Nick, he mentioned Sunningdale was like his favorite golf course as well. It's just amazing. I've not been over there. In fact, I told you I lost my golf clubs. I was supposed to go to the Open Championship at Royal Liverpool a couple years ago with Visit North Carolina, and they lost my clubs and my clothes for an entire week.
Wow.
And I said, you could lose my clothes, but do not lose my golf clubs. Because those are custom fitted. So I did spend some time in China. I know you were at Hainan Island.
Shanken Bay.
And there was Dr. Chu that built those golf courses, because he built Mission Hills, where I used to teach back in 2009.
Yeah, so played there as well.
It's interesting because I remember being in China. They were building golf courses like there was no tomorrow.
Left and right.
I met American architects over there almost daily.
Yes.
Just said they were like, we're building them as fast as we can. And I understand they probably eliminated about half of those.
Yeah, it's been a weird scene. And even at Shanken Bay, the 17th hole was just the Chinese government planted like 400 trees on it, and take it out of play. And even Shanken Bay fell out of the rankings for a while because it kind of had lost the 17th hole, and they put in a little small 18th hole. And I argued for a long time, the 17 holes that are left at Shanken Bay are better than a lot of the courses that are in the World 100. And I'm really happy in the latest golf rankings that Shanken Bay's back, because it's just a phenomenal golf course in a crazy place. Getting to Hainan Island is in itself an adventure.
No question. Where you talking about let's say what's on the agenda, where you're going to play, say, the next 5 or 6 months?
Yeah, so I decided to try to see if I could get the GB&I 100 done, with adding to what I've done. I think that puts me in some unique category, and I'm 70 of them right now. So we've got a trip planned this summer in June, where I looked at the map, and most of them that I'm missing are in England, back to the comment earlier. And so I figured out a route to play courses out of London and then west to the coast and then up through Wales, in some crazy places at Wales that most people don't get to, Pinehurst and Royal St. David and places like that. But I've got a trip. I think we've got 17, 18, 19 rounds on the agenda, 16 unique courses, and are one-offs, and I've never played any of them. So that'll get me, I think, to 85 of that list, and then there's 15 left. And when you get to 15, you know what happens then. You figure out how to play the 15.
When you go to these different countries, talk about the game of golf and what is the common thread that you understand different cultures, different golf courses, different countries. What is the common thread with the game of golf when it comes to people, and you get to meet different people in different cultures?
In all the rounds I've played, and I've played a lot as a single, I've met 3 people in all that time that I never would want to tee the ball up with again. But this is out of thousands of people, right? So first of all, the game of golf is populated with just wonderful human beings. And it doesn't matter what your station in life is. I've played with firefighters. I've played with people that hung marble on buildings 70 stories off the ground in New York City. And I played with people who I couldn't carry their checkbook. I've got a couple of friends over in Scotland and England that, have got jobs that just blow me away. And there's no reason we should be friends. And yet when they come to America, we play. And when I go over there, we find a way to play. So that's the first thing about the game of golf. It's just a bunch of great people. And, over there, especially if in GB&I, they play quickly. They walk, I don't care what age you are, it's a trolley in front and off they go. And in 3.5 hours, they're done. You got to love them for that. I wish we could bring that habit back to America, but it's great. And I don't care who you tee it up with. Everybody is just in love with the game for a variety of reasons.
I think one thing that I enjoy going to different cultures and things like that is not just the golf, but the social experience. So talk about like what some of the culinary experiences you've had in different countries and what you might remember from, a great day of golf, meeting some great people, but then also having some time to understand more about the culture and the food and the culinary scene. So what would you recommend? What countries would you say, hey, you got to play golf, but check out this scene as well?
France. I mean, when I needed Morfontaine to finish the World 100, and it was late in the list because Morfontaine's a fairly hard get. And our day in France was we got up. My wife came with me. She's my team photographer. She plays once or twice a year. Now that we're in Pinehurst more, she's starting to think about playing more. So who knows? We may see Melissa out there eventually. But we went to Morfontaine, drove out there, drove back, got in this unbelievable horrific traffic, ended up driving through the 12 road mess around the Arc de Triomphe. I thought we'd never get back to our hotel. But that night we had a 3-star Michelin French dinner planned, which I'd never been to a 3-star French Michelin dinner. So I played Morfontaine in the morning, the Simpson design, which is just phenomenal. Played the 9-hole course, which may be as good a 9-hole course as there is in the world. And then to end the day at a formal French 3-star Michelin restaurant. That goes down as one of the great days in travel.
Talk about photography, talk about travel. You have your book here. It's Global Golf Travels. When was this published?
About 4 years ago, 3-4 years ago. We're almost to the end of its pub run, so we're super excited about that. My wife, when I wanted to do this, the idea was I had been writing a memoir, and I didn't know my one grandfather at all. He died before I was born, and my other grandfather died when I was a very young man. And I thought, my son is going to get married. If they ever had a child, something happens to me. His wife didn't have a grandfather on the other side. I was it. And so I thought, I'll write a memoir to the family. And then Tom Stewart, of all people here in Pinehurst, Tom found out what I was up to. And he said, you got to write a book. And I said, well, I kind of have, but it's really in memoir form. And he said, clean it up and publish it. And I said, Tom, no one is going to read my book. No one's going to care. And he said, Greg, everyone is trying to play a list, and they're going to live your life vicariously by reading about what it actually takes to actually do this. So Tom convinced me to publish it, and we polished it up during COVID. He hooked me up with one of the great designers at the Pine Straw magazine, and he hooked me up with his publisher. And all of a sudden, I got a 400-page, 8.5 by 11 hardbound book of the story of learning to play at a young age and then walking off the 18th green of Augusta National.
It's interesting because I grew up in Virginia Beach, and my dad was in the Navy, and I played it was a goat farm. It was called Eagle Haven. It was at Little Creek Amphibious Base. I learned how to play there. So, you're basically playing on hardpan all day. And so, my dad had passed away. He passed away at 66. So I get the feeling you get the same sentiment with your father in the game of golf and him being an athlete as my dad was. And so learning the game of golf from your father and playing those courses, and he passed away before I came to be able to play courses like this.
Right.
How does that make you feel like with your father? Because I always think he would lose his mind if I brought him to Pinehurst number 2.
Of course.
And number 4. What do you think about that?
No, I do think about that. Dad's with me a lot. When I played my 50th state, which was in Alaska, Rain Coast Dad. I had been to Alaska, but I hadn't played golf there. My last state to visit was New Mexico. So as soon as we landed in New Mexico, I told my wife, I said, we're going to Alaska next because I need to play a golf course there. And I played Moose Run and Eagle Glen, which were tied to the Army and the Air Force. And I played alone. I teed off at 6 o'clock in the morning. I could have teed off at 3 o'clock in the morning with the daylight. And I got to the 18th hole, and it was a little sharp dog leg, and I hit a hybrid over the trees and chipped it to a couple inches and made birdie. And I broke down and bawled because my dad wasn't there, because Moose Run reminded me of my home Muni. And here I am on a Muni. I'm finishing my 50th state, and all I could think about was my dad.
I'll tell you a quick story about my dad. I actually played the cradle on Christmas Day. I didn't do it this year. It was too cold. But I typically would play it every year because nobody's out there on Christmas morning.
Right.
So I'll get there and play, and I'll play one ball for me, and I'll play one ball for my dad. And one year, I was even par. My dad was 4 under. I almost aced on my dad's ball 3 times. I mean, all within a couple feet. And
it's super special.
Yeah.
It's super special. And you are out there for other people. One of the other things that happened early on in the golf career is in high school, I played competitively. And the other guy that was vying for the number 1 spot was the coach's son, Mike. And Mike was a great friend, and we played tooth and nail all the time. And after I got to college, I came home my sophomore year, and again, I said we ran a funeral home and ambulance company, and I wrote ambulance. And one morning at 5 a.m, we get a call, and it's to an ambulance call, and there's an accident just outside of town. And we get out there, and it's just barely cracking dawn, and we see a car in the ditch upside down. My brother-in-law runs down to the ditch, and he looks in, and he said, "The young man's dead." And he said, "Greg, do you know anybody that's got a brown car?" And we're looking at this car, and I'm like, "No, I don't know anybody with a brown car." Well, as the sun came up, the car turned from brown to maroon. And all of a sudden, I did know somebody with a maroon car. It was my coach's family. And I said, "Is the kid stocky or thin?" Because his brother was a track runner. And he said, "He's stocky." And I said, "It's Mike." And so here I am standing on the side of the road with my high school nemesis and arch friend and arch enemy on the golf course, because we were so competitive. And he's dead after his freshman year in college. And so I play for Mike too.
Yeah, no, it's a great story. We talked about, just mentioned the cradle. What do you think about the kind of proliferation of great par 3 courses?
Love it. First of all, it brings everybody to the game, right? Yeah. My son came down and he's joined Pinehurst as a legacy member, and we have a 6-year-old grandson, our only one. And he can take little Theo out there, and Theo can beat the ball around in the cradle. Doesn't offend anyone, but he can learn the game from that age up. And my wife can play. And others can play, and you can play in bare feet and so on. And so I think the proliferation of par 3 courses and the fact that USGA now allows posting of 9-hole scores, it's phenomenal, because it's bringing more people to the game. I think I saw a statistic the other day. There were like 14 or 15 million 9-hole scores posted last year.
Wow.
I mean, that tells you something.
Cradle's a great par 3. We know that one here. What other par 3 courses would you recommend playing?
Well, again, the Valley Air course at Morfontaine is probably the best in the world as far as I'm concerned. There's all the big resorts now have done them. Yeah. The Bath at Kohler is a lot of fun. They made a par 3 course, and they're template holes. So it's like playing, some of the old classic Rainer holes in a par 3 condensed version. How much fun is that? And
Tiger the Hay out of Pebble, have you played that one?
I haven't. Actually, I haven't, no.
Yeah.
Always another one to play, Phil.
Yeah, for sure. Talk about, a lot of people talk about Mike Strand's golf courses. I'm sure you've played his. And, you laugh because
of course.
He was just such a genius, but just such a crazy guy too.
Crazy.
But talk about Tobacco Road, because everybody, people ask me, and it's like, it's a love-hate. It truly is.
God.
So it just depends on how you score. If you score great, you love it. If you don't, then it sucks.
So everybody that comes down and they ask, "Greg, where should I play?" And I give them the same run on the Pinehurst courses. I tell them to play the 3 Ross courses, in the Kelly stable. And what about Tobacco Road? Everybody asks, right? And I said, "I'm not going to tell you anything about it." And they're like, "What do you mean? I'm asking you about your opinion." And I said, "I will tell, if you haven't played it, I will never say a word about Tobacco Road until you've played it." And they're like, "Why?" I said, "Play it,
right,
and you'll understand." And then everyone that plays it calls back. And, I know in the Golf Week universe, I think it's well, I know for a fact it is the most polarizing ranking in our entire database. People have rated it as low as a 2 and as high as a 9 out of the 1 to 10 scale. There's no other course with a dispersion like that in the entire database. So, Tobacco Road is a love-hate. There's no question.
And he's got a sister course over in Asheboro, Todd Hill Farm. Have you played that since the renovation?
That's Tobacco Road on steroids.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think Tobacco Road's crazy, you get to Todd Hill and I mean, you just like, wow, what was Mike doing out here? But
visually stunning. I mean, both those courses.
In the course I mentioned, Monterey Peninsula, when we played with the 90-year-old Barbara, I mean, it was the redo of the shore course. And I mean, the work he did there was, phenomenal. So, Mike unfortunately left us too soon.
No doubt about it. I think he was 50 years old when he passed away of cancer. I love his car. I used to live down in Myrtle Beach and the Caledonia. I mean, Caledonia is one of my top 5 favorites.
On what, 80 acres?
Yeah.
To sit there and you don't feel like, you think on 80 acres, you're going to have balls whizzing over your head every time you turn around. And on 80 acres, it worked. I don't know how he did it.
And when you go there in the spring, it's just with the flower. I mean, it's just, it reminds me of Augusta National.
Yeah.
It's just beautiful. My brother doesn't play as much as I do. And he could be a little frustrated at times. And so he double bogeyed the first hole and, he was kind of effing here and there. And so I said, look, man, you got your camera. You're going to enjoy one of the most beautiful golf courses you'll ever see.
Absolutely.
Take a lot of pictures.
Right.
And there was just Visaya's route. It was spectacular. He played well after that. And we had a great day. And again, just from a brother standpoint, to enjoy that experience was super special. I remember that day.
No doubt.
Very much so. Talk about, let's say like maybe you played in every state. So and I'm on the state golf panel. So I'd love to be a golf course raider or a golf week raider and play around the world. In fact, if you need to adopt another son, I'll be happy to go travel.
Phil, we can tee it up. I'm happy with that idea.
I think we'll tee it up around here first, and then maybe
enough.
I can join you overseas somewhere.
Fair enough.
But name maybe the top 5 in the state of North Carolina that you like.
Oh my gosh! Well, they're in the neighborhood for sure. Number 2 is there. The Ross courses are great. The work they've done at Old Town is so good.
Man, you read my mind because I love that course.
So that's great. And I'm drawing a blank on the one north of there, the other Ross course, up in the mountains.
Elk River, or
no,
not Grandfather.
Well, it's terrible.
Yeah.
Roaring Gap.
Oh yeah,
Roaring
okay.
Gap.
Yeah.
Just a wonderful little treasure up in that market. North Carolina is blessed with just some tremendous golf. Obviously, Diamond Creek and others. I mean, this is a great state to come to, and I think people they all know to come to Pinehurst, right? And then people come to Pinehurst and they haven't heard of the other 3 Ross courses, and you're like, we got to come back,
Yeah.
But everybody comes for the reason that they come to Pinehurst for the home of golf, and that's great. But explore the horizon and go a little further afield, and there's just so much good golf.
I saw in some of the pictures you shared Magnolia Lane at Augusta National, and of course in front of the clubhouse. You played there, and I've had a buddy of mine at the CBS affiliate in Augusta for 30 years, and this was when I lived in Myrtle Beach. He said, "Hey, sometimes they get a phone call. And it's like they call in the morning, and they can play in the afternoon,
right, or
they'll call you late at night and say first thing in the morning,
right."
And I said, "You give me 3.5 hours to drive from Myrtle Beach to Augusta, I'll be there in a heartbeat." I never got that phone call,
right.
But I've been there 10 times for the Masters practice round, regular round, thing like that, competitive round. But how special is that place to somebody that's never been there? It's hard to even describe because it is like God laid out this beautiful green carpet, and it's amazing property.
It is, and the working title of the book for a long time was 199 Ain't Bad, because I knew I had no chance playing Augusta National. I mean, there's just no chance, and so I got to 199 of the Golf Week 2 lists, and I got to 99 of the World list after playing Durban in South Africa. And then that was 2018, and I'm staring at 1. And frankly, that was almost the worst thing that could have ever happened, because in my darkest dreams, I was dreaming of playing Augusta National, except I had made up my own golf course. It really wasn't the real Augusta National, which we all know like the back of our hand, but I had made up a different driveway, I had made up a different clubhouse, I had made up everything, and it almost became somewhat haunting. And unfortunately, I've got friends that have been at 99 of a World list for 15 years and haven't gotten a chance. So we were in May of 19, we were taking some friends over to England because, again, my friends hadn't played England. And we had my home course in Chicago, Flossmoor, had a relationship with Royal Syncports. We had both hosted major championships at the same year, 1909 and 1920. Syncports had hosted the Open Championship, and we had hosted the Western Amateur, which at the time was a major, and Chick Evans' first national title. And in 1920, Hutchinson won the PGA at Flossmoor. So they had wanted to come over and play matches with everyone who had mimicked up their things. So it was Brookline, it was Chicago Golf, it was Oakland Hills, and Flossmoor, and several others. And so those boys came over, and we had a rip-roaring weekend with a bunch of guys from Syncports. And so we formed a sister-sister relationship. So we were supposed to go back in that was in 2009. We were supposed to go back in 10, and needless to say, 2010 was not the year people were doing a bunch of golf travel because their businesses were falling apart. And so we didn't get to go back. And so 18, we were over in England playing with a couple of those guys. And I said to my buddy Kevin, who had since become a Syncports member, I said, we should go back and celebrate the 10th anniversary of them coming to America. And Kevin's like, we'll never get the guys to do it. And I said, yeah, we will. I'm going to make it my personal goal that we get enough guys from Flossmoor to go play matches at Syncports. And we did. And so we were going to play Rye and Littlestone and Syncports and Swinley Forest and several others. And we're in Deal, and I wake up one morning, and I've got this frantic text message on my phone at 5 a.m., and I look at it, and it was from a gal that I knew from Japan who would help me with some inbound travel when I wanted to play in Japan. And she said, Greg, what are you doing Friday? I may have a tee time for you at Augusta National.
Oh, my gosh.
I'm in Deal, England.
Oh.
And so I sent her a message back, and I said, I'm there, but I got to know because I'm going to bail on a golf trip because we were leaving England. We were going to go to the Netherlands to play Royal Hague in Japan. And if I'm going to bail on my buddies, I got to know. Yeah. And she said, well, the member this was 5 a.m. my time. It was 5 p.m. her time. And the member was in America and it was dark. And so she said, well, I won't know for a few hours, but I think there's a spot. And he said that if I knew somebody that really needed it, he'd make it available.
The next day?
In 2 days.
Yeah.
So I had basically 48 hours to unwind an entire trip in England and then rewind and get to America. And of course, I've got the wrong clothes. I don't have a regular camera because you can't use your cell phone there. You have to have a regular digital camera. Huh. So my wife and son and I are shipping stuff down to me. I'm trying to get a flight to Atlanta, trying to get over to Augusta, and thank God it worked. And so literally I met the member after being up 27 hours at a hotel, and he said, here's where we meet the next morning. And then down Magnolia Lane we went. Wow. And we were supposed to play the par 3 course first. And so I'm hitting wedges on the range, and then they decided we were going to number 1. And I hadn't hit driver yet. And so I'm standing on the first tee of Augusta National, literally.
And what time of year is this?
This was in May after the tournament. Wow. So the course was in phenomenal shape. And I'm standing on 1 saying, God, I hope I hit the front of the club.
Exactly. How'd you hit it?
I got it in play.
You got it in play.
The first 6 or 7 holes are so scary because you're just so out of you've played at video games, you've walked the course, been to the tournament, and literally it's almost hard to pull the trigger. Once I got to 7, I hit a pretty good drive and I hit a wedge into the back bunker, and I'm like, God's sakes, I'm gonna make another double. From 8 on in, I played really, really well. But
ask Amen Corner, how'd you do there?
Amen Corner, I missed a par putt on 11. I hit it on 12. I got the right Masters Sunday pin. Everyone says where to hit it. Dead center of the green.
I was saying left.
I had a 150-yard 8-iron, hit it dead center of the green, ran the first putt 8 feet by because I was so excited I was on the green, made the comebacker, which was cool. And I made par on 13. So it was, it's ethereal. And especially when it's the last one and the one I never thought I'd get to play.
Yeah.
Just a blessing beyond
How about
words.
16?
16, I dumped it in the water. Yeah, I made double on 16.
Well, you could say
hard 18 though, so I did.
Okay.
And I up and downed it to a back right pin from right of the right bunker, which was a pretty crazy shot.
Well, it's a great treat. I'm so glad you got to do that. I hope at some point in my life I get a chance to do that.
I hope you do too.
So we'll see what happens. Probably very doubtful. A friend asked me. I was talking to him about you being on the podcast, and he asked me. It just somehow it popped into his head. I cannot remember the name of the golf course. It's in Africa, but you see the pictures because you hit this par 3. You're
way up high. Yeah, I don't remember the name of it either.
But you have not played that course?
No, the only course I've played in Africa at this point is Durban in South Africa.
Okay. So that course is probably not in the top 100 in the world.
It wasn't. And when I got to 98 and I needed Durban, and I called my buddy Ben, who went on all my crazy big trips with me. He plays down in Naples. And I said, are you willing to fly with me to London? Because the easiest way to get to South Africa is the overnighter from Heathrow. So I said, we're going to fly to London. We'll play the weekend. And then we're going to fly the overnighter to Durban, play Durban, and fly the overnighter back the next day. And he's like, yeah, I'm in. And so I was in South Africa for under 24 hours just to play Durban.
Well, Greg Ohlendorf, what a charmed life you lead.
It was fun.
Would love to join you sometime. Even if it's just in Pinehurst, we'd love to tee it up with you sometime. Maybe we get Kelly Miller out to play sometime.
That would be a riot.
Again, the book is Global Golf Travels. Where can we get this? I guess on Amazon.
It's sold out on Amazon, so it's only on my website now, which is www.globalgolftravels.com. There aren't very many of them left, but if anybody's into it, certainly happy to get a copy out to somebody.
If you would sign this one, we'll give it away.
Yeah, how about it?
On our social media channel, so we'd be honored to do that. I may even keep it.
Absolutely.
But no, we appreciate your time. I know you're super busy. You travel a lot, and we will definitely tee it up in Pinehurst very soon.
That'd be great, Phil. This is a lot of fun.
Greg Ohlendorf, he is known as Mr. Top 100, and deservedly so. If you want to learn more about tourism in Moore County in the Pinehurst, Southern Pines, Aberdeen area, go to our website, which is homeofgolf.com. St. Andrews always sends us a letter trying to get us to give up that URL. It is homeofgolf.com. Sorry, St. Andrews. If you want to watch our videos, go to our YouTube channel, which is Home of American Golf. This has been Paradise in the Pines, and we'll see you next time.